The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
What is up? Episode 158. Want to make a announcement right here at the top of the show, Sports Card Nation. Going to notice something different starting with today's episode. We are going to move the Hobby What's Up section. That's where we do the news of the week. The new release schedule done by the young men, Max and Owen from the Sports Card Shop at Moco. And the question and answer section, where I take a question I get asked, not on the air, put it on the air and answer it. Those three segments, we're going to move over to the Hobby Quick Hits show, which still remains on Monday. We're just moving those sections and segments over there. And Sports Card Nation will stay here on Friday. Nothing's changing on the days. We're just moving some segments from Sports Card Nation over to Hobby Quick Hits. This will remain a weekly interview show with, some of that less excess segments, which will move over to Hobby Quick Hits. Why? We think it balances both shows out a little bit better and makes both shows a little bit more consumable. I think the goal ultimately, I'm not saying we're going to hit it all the time, but I think the goal ultimately is to keep both shows under 60 minutes in length. I'm not saying every week we'll hit that goal, but that's kind of where we want to keep them and a little more consumable on both shows. So we'll see how it goes. So today we have a special guest, Alex Nisenker from Relics Cards and Collectibles, a card store in Toronto, Canada, to the north if you're here in the United States. And they opened Relics, him and his three partners, during the pandemic. And we're going to talk about the difficulties of that, some of the pratfalls and stuff they ran into. We're going to talk about what's hot in Canada, how he sees the market going, and some, Fanatics discussion. I can't talk to an LCS and not get their opinion on Fanatics. And Alex, very experienced guy as far as, an entrepreneur, and we'll talk about that as well. Nice of him to give the show some time, and I think you'll enjoy that conversation. I know I did for sure. Let us know what you think of this new format. That's how we get better. And again, I think it's going to be make our Monday Hobby Quick Hits and this show, Friday Sports Card Nation, a little bit more balanced out rather than have one be super heavy and one be super light. So again, let us know what you think. We do appreciate that feedback.
Sup everyone, it's Brody the Kid. Always remember, the hobby is the people. Peace out.
Iron Sports Cards is your number one source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Sports Card Nation! It's now time to chop it up with our featured guest on the one-of-one card shop guest line. Let's go!
Today we're going to do a shop showcase, and we're going to do one with an LCS north of the border here with Relics. They're in Toronto, and I'm joined by one of the owners, Alex. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So you're, I know I just spoke to you before we went live here. You're one of the four owners of Relics. Again, like I said, based in Toronto, one of my favorite cities. I love getting to Toronto when I can. Unfortunately, this darn pandemic is really kind of monkeyed up the waters, but we got to err on the side of caution. I get it, but hopefully can get back there sooner rather than later. But kind of, if you will, give us a little bit of your hobby history, and then we'll kind of get into how Relics was born.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, thank you for saying that about Toronto. I agree. It's a great city. We always joke, especially nowadays, Toronto's, aside from the Raptors winning the championship, we have Drake as like the Raptor ambassador, and we have Justin Bieber as the Toronto Maple Leafs ambassador. So, we have local musical superstars that are also branding our sports teams all over the world. So we're fortunate for that. My hobby history is kind of like, I think the same as a lot of people in sort of my generation, right? I'm in my mid-30s. I collected a lot as a kid, growing up as a kid in Canada. Hockey cards were kind of a staple of any sort of childhood for a lot of us, going to 7-Eleven and ripping 91, 92 Upper Deck and going to the local hobby shops and just, getting to know the owners and standing around and just shooting the breeze with them for hours, trying to scrounge together $5 to open up a pack of cards. It was truly an embedded part of my childhood. I collected a lot in sort of my 11, 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I think as I started to mature and I got different interests in life, and it was a perfect storm of also the hobby, unfortunately, fading with the sort of the 90s junk wax era and the strikes happening with the sports. And I think just an overall fade in interest happened all around that time. And I kind of gave it up completely. And then fast forward to, I would say about 6 years ago, I'm my brother at the time, who's also one of the owners at Relics. His name is Eugene. I'm visiting him in California with we both have young kids. We're sort of just doing a New Year's thing together. And we're sitting around on New Year's Eve. Our kids are too young, so we can't really go out anywhere. And we say to ourselves, we're reminiscing about old childhood memories, and sports cards was a big thing for both of us. And we both say to ourselves, man, it's been like 20 years since I've like felt the joy of ripping a pack of sports cards. And as a gag joke, we go on eBay and order ourselves a case of 2015-16 Upper Deck hockey cards, chasing the McDavid. I think we ordered a case of blasters. Arrives at his house like the next day. We tear into it, rip a whole case of 15-16 blasters. Don't hit a single McDavid. Hit a couple of decent cards. And honestly, we kind of like, it was probably like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of just like being in like a frenzy of going down the memory lane as kids. And that literally just opened up Pandora's box for us, man. Like we just started to be like, oh my God, I haven't felt this much like raw joy since like, like I've been a kid, and like, I can't believe we stopped. And we started to research once again, what's the hobby like now? Like we've been so disconnected for so long. And so, ever since then, we just slowly started to have this little competition of, okay, like, we get to see each other once or twice a year. We live far away from each other. So we like PC stuff. And then we, get together and show ourselves like who's got the better PC, literally just like we used to do as kids, right? Like we used to run in our separate directions, come back home and sort of try to trade or try to like one up each other. So ever since then, we've become collectors again and have gotten ourselves back in the hobby. I've expanded to collecting basketball as a PC as well, and I do a little Formula One collecting. So yeah, it's been awesome to get back into it. And man, has it changed?
Oh yeah, I'm the old man on the porch here, Alec. I'll save that. We don't have time, but it's amazing. Just kind of chasing. The hunt for McDavid sparked and ignited that nostalgia of what you used to do, and here you are back again, and back in a big way with the store Relics. Tell us how Relics got off the ground. You kind of now you and your brother are sort of back but how did the store come about?
So yeah, great question. I mean, the one thing that I noticed and I was kind of disappointed to find out as I started to get back into the hobby was just how much of a endangered species LCSs had become.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Toronto, there was a really iconic LCS that I'd spent vast majority of my sort of hobby money at, and a lot of I think collectors in Toronto know, and it was Sluggers. It's an iconic store
Yeah.
called Sluggers, and there's a documentary about those guys called Jack of All Trades on Netflix. So I'll definitely give them a
Yeah.
plug.
Stu, do you know? Not to cut you off. Do you know Stu Stone?
I don't know Stu, but I when I was around, it was Carlos who was running the show, and
Okay.
and I actually chatted with Carlos for a while at the
Yeah.
expo, and sort of I'm sure he doesn't remember me. I was a weedy kid back then, but Carlos is still very active in the game, and he's got some mammoth cards, and yeah. So Sluggers was like, almost a second home for me, right? I'd ride my bike there all the time, weekends after school. I'd get to know all the other kids and adults in the shop, and I really try to find that now. Like I'm, my mid 30s is like, what's my LCS, right? Like, where do I go when the Upper Deck release comes out, or I want to like trade a slab, or I want to do something? And I had a really hard time finding it, even in a city as big as Toronto. Like, we're a pretty big metropolis, and we do have a few stores. Dolly's has been around for a very long time. They do an amazing job. Shout out to Dolly's. But there was nothing like really in my neighborhood. There was nothing really that was like, a lot of the ownership, and not to knock sort of the history of hobby shops, but a lot of it is like legacy ownership. They all kind of look the same. They look a little bit dated, and they, the business practices and their online websites I found to be like really lacking. And I said, this sucks. And I kind of left it at that. And then COVID hit, and I started to get a little bit more free time. I'm an entrepreneur, and mainly I work in real estate. And there's this one little tiny shop down the street from my house, and they used to be a vape shop, and they went out of business. And, I would sort of like take my daughter for walks all the time, and we walk by it, and for some reason, it just kept speaking to me. It kept speaking to me. And I'm like, man, this would be an amazing place to put an LCS. Like, there's none around. It's the perfect, like, sort of like frontage. We're on a main street, young street, like literally the great walking traffic. So I like threw the idea out to my brother almost like as a half joke. And when I was talking to him on the phone, I was with another close friend of mine and a business partner in other ventures that I do, a guy named Paul, who's another one of the owners. And his ears perked up. He was never really a collector, but he's a massive sports fan. And he said, hey, my brother's a collector. And then we got him on the phone, and I'm just like pitching them the idea of this like radical thing. And I said, guys, it's probably going to make no money, but it's going to be super fun. They're all like, let's do it, just as like almost like this passion play. Everything else we do in life is more so for like, generating income and taking care of our families, and everything else is like, let's do this one thing that's really for us. And more so for the hobby and for the community. And that's exactly what it's become. Like, I got to say, Relics has truly become, in like the short year we've been around, a staple in the community here. We make jokes that we run an after school program because, every day at 3:30, you sort of pull up to our shop, and it's like an onslaught. It's like the Hells Angels of bicycles. You've got like bicycles lined up along the side of our shop, and scooters and everything else, and the kids are just hanging out inside. It's exactly sort of what I used to experience at Sluggers.
That's awesome. And as a former kid that started in the hobby at 7 years old, and my shop, which I was at literally every day, I like to, I wasn't a goody two shoes kind of kid, and I would think if it wasn't for probably sports cards and me kind of being in that store every day and talking to the owner, wound up being a store I worked in and worked for. I might have gotten some more trouble than I actually didn't get into, and there's something to be said about that. And so kudos to you guys for being there. I love Kids in the Hobby is a huge platform of mine. I love seeing it. I love seeing. I think with the last year or two, we've even seen more so, and that's a good thing. All right, we're going to take a real quick break, but after that, we'll be back with more with Alex.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Sports Card Nation is back with Alex Nisenker. How scary is it to open a business during a worldwide pandemic?
I mean, to be completely honest with you, John, the pandemic was a little bit scary. What eventually made it really scary was actually learning the business as it operates today. So, I've started and sold businesses in the past. I consider myself a pretty astute guy when it comes to business. Man, is this industry messed up? Is there some seriously wrong things with the supply chain of this business? And you touched on the kids factor. I really, really wish it was easier for kids to enter this hobby. It is so hard. I go back to my childhood. You had $5 in your pocket, you could have a good time. You can chase somebody, you can open a couple packs, you can sort of get your fix, as they say, right? You have $5 in your pocket now, and I get inflation, and I get everything else, but that has nothing to do with it. There's some critical supply chain problems that I think need to be addressed. And listen, I listen to guys like the Card Father, and he puts out some phenomenal videos, and he runs a huge shop in Burbank, and it's crazy for me to hear guys like that have been around for so long, that are truly kind of like, titans in this industry, experiencing the exact same frustrations as little old me. Like, I'm a year old, I'm a tiny shop in Toronto, and, we're experiencing the exact same thing. So it's crazy to me that, it's still happening. And that's the scary thing to me, right? As a business owner, the way I chase my supply is not fundamentally sound.
Yeah, well, we can get into a little bit, maybe later on here in a few minutes, but, the Fanatics deal, we'll see how that changes it, bad for the better, or maybe even for the worse. That's to be determined. Anyone that says they know how it's going to be better, I think we're all speculating. I think we all hope it's going to be better, sure, unless you're root against things, then maybe not. But if you love the hobby and passion for it, I think we all hope it's going to be better. I don't think just because we want it to be doesn't mean it just happens. There's a lot of things we want, and it doesn't work always out. So we'll have to see. I'm optimistic, but we'll have to see. Now, I owned a card store a long time ago, from 1992 to 97. I had one partner. It was me and my partner Angelo at the time. Talk about just briefly about me and Angelo got along pretty well. Sure, every once in a while we have a discussion about something. Is it difficult with three other partners in the sense? Talk about how that process works.
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, not really. I mean, we've naturally all brought a somewhat of a different skill set to the table. My brother is like strong acumen in finance, so he's sort of become our like quasi CFO. He runs our books and some of our supplier relationships. I like to consider myself a true hobbyist. I'm probably one of the guys one of the owners that truly takes their PC very seriously. And I put sort of my money where my mouth is when it comes to that stuff. I really keep track of the singles and the cards and what's happening in the industry on the front lines. And Gary, who's another owner, Paul's brother, he's the same as me. So we're more so the guys that are truly the sort of the subject matter experts on the hobby itself. So, we're the ones that are always sourcing wax and deciding what kind of breaks we want to run and what kind of singles we want to buy. And, we're chasing estate sales. We've had luck making a couple big estate sale buys. And then Paul is he's quasi HR. He's we have a really amazing staff that runs the shop day to day, JJ and David. our guys on the front lines, and they absolutely crush it for us. None of this would be possible without them. They live and breathe Relics, and we got really, really lucky with bringing on good staff from pretty much day one when we were allowed to open our brick and mortar doors. And so I got to say, from a personnel perspective and from team cohesiveness and everyone sort of knowing their role and trying to execute on it, we're super blessed on that front.
All kind of like gears working together, and like you said, having a great staff is not always common. So when you have it, it always is always refreshing and nice. Obviously, I'm going to go out on a limb and say hockey's probably your main seller, if you will. But what after hockey, is it basketball?
It's actually basketball first.
Really?
Yeah. Basketball is the number one chase. WAC singles. We move more basketball than any other sport, and I would say hockey is just slightly above football. With football being like a very close third, and sometimes depending on the time of year and what product's out, it trumps hockey as well.
I gotta be honest with you, Alex. I'm a little surprised by that. I figured it was hockey's like a no-brainer. What do you attest that to?
I think just the success of the Raptors is a huge element of it.
Yeah.
I also card collecting, especially for a lot of people that are coming into the space sort of as new people, right? Like I think COVID created this perfect storm of a situation where you have people like me that are chasing nostalgia. Then you have brand new people that never collected as kids that are entering the hobby strictly because, they're bored and they think it's interesting. And then you have the sort of the third bucket of just speculators, right? Oh, this is a money grab, and I can buy for $1, sell for $2. So I think for the people like me, the nostalgia people, the vast majority of those people are hockey, baseball people, because those were the sort of sports that really drove collectors back then. Basketball and football weren't as rampant from product selection and just popularity. So those guys are kind of sticking, those are mainly where our hockey fans are coming from. But the newbies, a lot of those people are entering into basketball. I think that's my opinion personally, and people can dispute me on this. I think it's because basketball does a way better job at branding their athletes. The off season is just as exciting as the on season when it comes to basketball, right? Basketball players have personalities, they have social media followings, half of them are dating celebrities. Like, people are, and I'll say another thing, a lot of our female clients are basketball clients. And I think that's a combination of WNBA, and also they just feel like they're more connected to those athletes because they happen to, again, have personality and speak outside of the sport, for whatever cause or situation or whatever it is. Where, hockey, and I know they've been harped on this for a while, right? It's sort of like a phenomenal sport, very fun to watch, but that sort of athlete persona doesn't really exist, not yet at least, the way it does in basketball. I think that translates to sports cards. And the other reason basketball, I think, really it picks up for us is we have a big Asian community in Toronto, and basketball is obviously massive in Asia. With even the Team All product now being a mainstream product, and so a lot of those clients are obviously chasing basketball as well.
Yeah, great points on basketball. I think you really hit it all on the head. I think out of the four major sports, if you will, they do the best job at marketing themselves. Like you said, there's no helmets. You know what everyone looks like. They're very outspoken, even with political issues.
Yeah.
You mentioned another thing, but sometimes forget about a good percentage of them are dating or married to whether other celebrities or actresses. And that sort of thing, so that it's almost double exposure there as well. And you got even the overseas market as well, which is huge. I'm surprised to hear you mention football. Football is generally, I love football, so that's refreshing to me. I'm waving the football pennant, but generally most people rank a lot of times football either third or fourth when you're ranking them. I love football. I think it has really the the biggest ceiling as far as if you're into values and where it can go to where it is now. What do you attest to football? I didn't hear you. We'll get to baseball in a second, but
Sure.
talk a little bit about football. Why do you think that it's being stronger for you?
Well, I think again, for example, in Toronto and abroad, we have a big betting scene. We have a lot, there's a lot of fantasy followers that are translating into card collectors, and I'm speaking about sort of the new people entering the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is there's also like a changing of the guard happening right now with respect to superstars, right? So you kind of have, Brady slowly passing the throne to the Mahomes and the Burrows and the Herbies of the world that are coming into the scene. And now, Mac Jones trying to make a name for himself as well. So I think, with that happening, you have card collectors that are both new card collectors and potentially trying to start their PCs from the very beginning. They don't have sort of those legacy hockey cards or legacy baseball cards that they're trying to carry and build on. So they're like, okay, I'm a fan of X sport. I'm going to start from the beginning, and football, I think, resonates well for that. One thing I'm always surprised about for football, I'll just say this really quickly, is I'm really surprised by the value that football cards, or the lack of value that football cards carry for non-QB cards. I was amazed. We bought at a big estate once, and a lot of football cards in that estate, some big running back names, big WR names. And we're just appraising every card after we bought it out. And I was just like, wow, it's crazy to me how much the QBs drive value of sports cards, or of football cards specifically.
Yeah. The problem with running backs is, and I've talked about this on my show, you're looking at, for even a good one, kind of a 4 to 6 year window, and the drop off happens quick. With look, I'm a Steelers guy, and I look at one of our former running backs, Le'Veon Bell, went
You took
from
the word right out of my mouth. Yep,
arguably one of the best backs in the league, and now has played on 4 teams in 2 years and can't get any playing time, and his cards are not in demand, even rookie cards. And when he's done playing, you look at his numbers, they're going to be pretty good, but he's not going to get much hobby love. It's just that window is too short. They're kind of here, and then they're gone and forgotten. I hate to say it. I wish I didn't have to, but that's the reality. I'm going to step aside for a real brief moment, but we'll be right back after that. Greg Morris Cards wants to buy your cards. A long-trusted name in the sports card business, Greg has been buying sports card collections for over a decade now. Any sport, baseball, basketball, football, or hockey, in any era, vintage or modern, will do. Just no junk wax era sets, please. To learn more and to sell Greg Morris your cards, go to www.gregmorriscards.com. Fill out the consignment sale request form, and someone will get back to you on how to get cash for your cards. Also, if you're a dealer looking to sell your collection, Greg Morris wants to talk. Plenty of dealers use Greg Morris' massive eBay platform as a way to consign their cards. Take advantage of Greg's experience in the hobby to get more bang for your buck. We are back with Alex from Relics Cards and Collectibles. I think what we're seeing though, Alex, I think we're seeing a little bit more hobby love for those receivers than we traditionally have. There's still a ways to go. Obviously, it's a quarterback-driven league. It's a quarterback-driven sport. Mm-hmm. And that's where that first love's going to go. That's where your highest values are going to go. But I think we're seeing receivers sort of close the gap, maybe just slightly. But definitely have some more room. But we're seeing, with receivers, a good receiver can play, 10 to 15 years and accumulate some numbers. No one's ever really going to pass Jerry Rice, but, there's going to be a lot of competition for who's the next guy after Jerry, whether it be, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, and now this kind of generation coming, your DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald's and that sort of thing. And we've seen those guys' cards sort of go up as Jerry, Jerry Rice's rookie for a long time was very cheap and affordable. And then all of a sudden, it almost seemed like overnight It was just like, bam, you're going to have to pay to get it now. And I think when that happened, some of the other players that were sort of in that conversation went up a little bit too. So I think quarterbacks and receivers with the gap closing slightly, and just, defensive guys just never seem to get, people love those skill set positions on the offensive side. And like we talked with running backs, that window is just so short and small that people like don't even really bother to, unless it's someone on their favorite team, they generally not going to collect, running back. But I'm happy, that it's doing well. Let's talk a little bit about baseball. You got a good young team, with Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. I'm surprised you didn't mention baseball more prominently. But, if the Blue Jays were really terrible and didn't have some young superstars, that might have made more sense to me. But kind of, elaborate a little bit more on maybe why that's not as high up there as I thought, at least I think it should be.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, listen, I think the recent success of the Jays is definitely going to help our shop and help us move baseball in general. I think part of the issue is, baseball is one of those sports where the superstars don't truly present themselves until 2 or 3 years into their careers, right? So, for example, we reordered some 2019 Topps product today. We're actually going to be running that for a Sick Kids break that we're going to be doing. We do work with Sick Kids Hospital here, and we're going to do a charity break in December for the holidays. So, we're sourcing some 2019 product, and we're going to have a celebrity athlete break it with us. And man, you got to see the prices on this 2019 wax. Like it's up there, right? So I think part of the reason that baseball doesn't perform as well here is, the new product that's affordable. You're not as excited by the chase because, you don't really know who these studs will become and will they become anything, right? And then I think inherently every year will have its stud, right? So, 2019 or 18, you got Ohtani, then you got Guerrero, then you got Bichette. And then, this year time will tell. But I think part of the reason is that you don't have that immediate sort of LaMelo Ball, that Joe Burrow, that Zion Williamson, right? Like, who am I after this year? And then by the time you know who you're after, you're paying 3x or 2.5x the price of the wax. And then it doesn't become as appealing anymore. So I think that's one of the reasons that it's harder to sort of move baseball. And another reason I think is that, this isn't a rip on Topps, but I think, because Topps owns the baseball license, I think Panini has done a really good job at sort of some of their marquee brands, right? Like Prism's really sort of like hitting home with people. And when they release a UFC or whatever the case may be, they really sort of drive it through Prism. And I hear, WWE's next. I think what Topps can do a little bit better is they need that sort of marquee iconic release, right? That one that everyone's waiting for, the base Topps I don't think it's as sort of, people aren't salivating for that release. And so you kind of have that like base Topps, and then you have a little gold label, you'll have a little Topps Finest, and then it goes into like the triple threads and like, the high end stuff that is really beautiful. I'm a massive fan of triple threads. I think it's one of the nicest wax rips, nicest card breaks you can buy. I love triple threads. And I think they just need to do a little bit better job of finding that sort of transition brand, right? From that, and maybe it's Topps Finest and it just needs a little bit more.
Well, they better hurry because they only got 2 more years. But no, I actually agree with you. That's a great point. And sometimes until you hear someone else say it a certain way, and then it really dawns on you. I'm like, yeah, you got the flagship, which is kind of it comes out around spring training a little bit before, and we get excited for it. But to promote it and drive it home, they have like this big rip party where like millions of boxes are getting ripped open. So it's creating excitement on one side. And then there's that other side that said, man, how much of this stuff did they produce? Right. So it's kind of that yin and yang, and it's sort of the push and pull. And I think in a way, while as much as it might be helping create a buzz, it's also creating that other side. Like they made way too much of that. And that was just the rip party the first day. That's not even to the general public yet. How much more did they make? So I hear exactly what you're saying. I think they could probably do a better job. Maybe it's things like that. Maybe that hurt them in not retaining. I don't know. You know what I mean? We can all speculate why whatever happened. I think really it comes down to money in the end. Where Fanatics was going to pay more, and they got it, and
And I think also, unfortunately for Topps present day, is that they're a bit cannibalized by Panini still printing baseball, right? I get that it's not. I get that it's not true, MLB supported baseball, but people still want to rip National Treasures baseball, and like Chronicles is out right now.
Yeah.
People are still ripping that. So I think, unlike Topps, that can't creep into the NBA sphere in the same way. They're kind of getting attacked from all sides, so it's not fun.
So as a store, you carry wax, obviously singles, and you do breaks as well.
Yeah.
You cover all the bases.
Absolutely. We started with just breaks because when we first sort of launched the brand, we weren't allowed to open brick and mortar because of the protocols in place in Ontario. So we literally launched as a break brand. Always we were ripping it out of the store. We leased the store right away. We always knew we were going to be a store.
So, I mean, I got to ask you, there's a lot of ways we can go, but with Fanatics taking over here in a couple of years, 3 of the 4 major sports, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm glad Upper Deck is keeping that NHL license, but Fanatics is going to have that baseball, basketball, and football. As a store owner, as I guess it's both. You can answer this in wearing 2 hats, as a collector and someone that has a passion for the hobby, and as a store owner, what are you hoping Fanatics does that maybe isn't or doesn't do, that's either not happening now or is happening now? What do you hope they come in? They have a lot of employees. If they're listening, what would you tell them? Hey, this is what I'd like to see.
Actually, I appreciate you asking me that, because I hope we have another half hour on this podcast so I can answer that question.
Not quite, but definitely I want to get your take for sure.
And it's funny because I tried to slide into Michael Rubin's DMs and have this conversation with him directly because, I'm new blood, and sometimes new blood has a different lens on things, right? I'm not as old school with my approach to it.
And I sometimes think that's a good listen. I'm the old school, almost 40 years guy, and that's great and that's fine. But I think we're all in. I've said this on the show, Alex. Whether you're 2 years, 4 years, 40 years, we're all in the same fraternity. And sometimes the newer folks coming in have sort of a fresh perspective. Sometimes, old eyes can be sometimes old eyes if you don't, wipe them and rub them and look through them and catch up. So I'm definitely, I don't, whether someone's new or not, sometimes I think that in a way that might be in a way an advantage, because you're almost not tainted by many years of, this is the way it's always been type of deal,
Yeah, and listen, I'm surviving. As a sports shop, I'm being forced to survive in a not a hostile supply chain business, but in a business where I'm not getting allocation, right? So I got to figure out a way to keep the lights on without the true wholesale retail model, right? Like a vast majority of stores that have been around for a while get the benefit of buying for 100 and selling for 200. I buy for 180 and sell for 200. So I think that's one common misconception a lot of customers have about, margin and, hobby shops. So that's a discussion for another day. But what I will say about Fanatics is this. And I've seen Michael Rubin on CNBC, and he's been talking about, some of, he's hinting at some of the plans. And so, they obviously have their existing operation doing stuff with the jerseys and the hats and everything else. And he said that, D2C is a few times a direct to consumer sort of model. And I think a lot of hobby shops are potentially, afraid of that approach. So here's one thing that I'd really like to see Michael do is I'd really like to see Michael start to incorporate hobby shops into the retail wax product. I think it's absolutely preposterous that 100% of wax is moved through the big box retailers, that, it's SKU 1 of 20,000 for them. Everybody knows this is no secret. Those shelves are being cleared out by people that are just scalping and flipping the product. by the time it gets in the hands of the final consumer, which is meant to be the kids, it's 4 times more expensive than its intended retail product. That needs to be corrected ASAP, and I hope Michael makes an effort of that. We need to be the gatekeepers of retail product. We need to keep it away from the people that are trying to middleman it and flip it. So if it's meant to be sold for $20, let us sell it for $20, and we will, we'll guard it better than, I won't say the names, but the big boy stores that, they don't really care. That's one thing I really hope he does.
Take a quick break to pay a couple bills, but right after that, we'll be back with Alex.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mats, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for investing in the hobby. Just download the app and sign up with the referral code SCN to get your first share free. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
We've returned with Alex from Relics Cards and Collectibles.
The one thing I hope he doesn't do is I hope he doesn't make an exclusive direct-to-consumer business or an exclusive direct-to-consumer industry, or make it exclusively a digital industry, in the sense that it's just like NFTs and collectibles that are only digital. And I know that he has a digital arm, and I know there's plans to go digital. And I'm a fan of NFTs. I'm a buyer of NFTs, and I'm in the NFT space. And I think they have a place, and I think that they'll serve a purpose. But I think the reason that LCSs have always existed, and the reason that I opened up an LCS, and the reason I think LCSs will survive, is because inherently there's a synonym with hobby, and the synonym with hobby is community. And without one or the other, I don't think it survives. Because a big reason people get into the hobby is exactly what you just mentioned a few minutes ago. It's a brotherhood, right? And you've said this on your podcast. Whether you collect 25-cent cards or whether you collect $1 million cards, you're still part of the community. And I think for a lot of people, they go home, and whether you're an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, a barber, a firefighter, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what walk of life. And this is true of Relics. Our location is a fairly affluent area of the city. But I got to tell you, amount of people from ages to backgrounds to walks of life that converge in our store and have 1-hour conversations that would have never crossed paths had they not been in Relics in any other life is very prominent. And I think if you remove that element completely, if you sort of cannibalize the industry to the point where everyone's clicking a mouse to get their sports cards, eventually you'll remove that hobby community element out of it. And while it's fun to hold a card in your hand or order a box of cards and sit at your desk or kitchen table and open them, that's going to fade. That excitement, that fun is just going to go away. And then you just won't get anybody clicking, because really and truly, if you're not sharing it with like-minded people, then what the heck's the point of doing it? It's fun to look at your briefcase, and trust me, I admire my PC all the time, but I love to share about it. Relics hosted a huge trade night at the expo. We just dropped a video about our trade night today. Like, we had a hotel conference room full of people shaking hands, bringing briefcases, doing deals, swapping slabs. Like, that is what the hobby shop is intended to promote. And it creates the funnel of the next generation. For kids to discover it, and for people that are into sports, have never really known about cards, and they come in and they ask us, how does it work? What do I buy? I want to start. We're educators. We're like community ambassadors. You shut that down, and I think you cut off the head of the snake, and you know what happens after that.
Well said, and you mentioned a couple of things I've said on the shows, which I strongly believe in. There's something to be said about that social interaction. We can all buy cards. We never have to leave our house. We can go on eBay. We can go on store sites like your own. We can get cards. That's never going to be an issue. But there's something about that interaction and talking with like-minded people who share that same passion and love of something. And if that goes away, like you just said, Alex, the hobby suffers for it. The hobby's never going to go away. We never had card stores or card shows anymore. There'd still be a hobby, but man, it would be a lot smaller place and a lot darker place, and not a good necessarily what we know today. That's why that's why shows are packed and people travel. I did shows when all you got were the local folks. That was it. No one was flying in. No, maybe 50 miles was the furthest person someone came from, was 50 miles. Now I did it myself. I went to Dallas last year. So, and I'm not talking the national, or the expo, which is a huge event. I'm talking, but people are even flying into the regional shows, and there's a reason for that. It's that interaction and meeting people, and whether it's someone they met initially online, but now I'm gonna get to see you in person, hang out, make a trade. Let's go to lunch. Let's have a beer if you're old enough, and that sort of thing. And that's so important. And even not just the people, but the cards itself, Alex. I mean, there's something about having a card in your hand, looking at it before you make a purchase or trade.
Totally.
And anytime you know how this works. Anytime, and I do both. I buy stuff in person and online. I'm sure you do the same. You buy something online, sure, you got scans, but until you get that card, you never know what's going on. And when that transaction's done in person, there's no confusion. There's no dilemma. I'm looking at the card. Here's what I see. And then you can even barter with the person if need be, both sides, as a seller and a buyer. And, as a former store owner, as someone, I'm doing a show this weekend. I still do card shows. I think that's so important. I sometimes love the interactions. Listen, I like money as much as the next guy. I'm not going to lie, but I love sort of that interactions with people. For me at the show, for you at the store and the show. And I hope those never go away. And I think they will. I don't know Fanatics or, what they're thinking, but there's a lot of smart people as part of this organization. I'm sure, and I hope they realize that and don't cut out stores, because the LCSs and stores are really one of the backbones of the hobby, of the community. And if you sort of cut them out, you're hurting yourself. Speaking of Fanatics in this case, you're hurting yourself, because they're so crucial to the whole, how everything works. Because many people who own stores set up at the shows too. The one, like you said, and I heard the same thing. If I'm one of the big distributors, I'd definitely be nervous. From what I'm hearing, and all indications are they sort of want to eliminate that model. And so those folks probably having meetings already, like, what do we do here if this is the way it goes? And, some of that they can blame themselves too. You hear stories where they've released some of it, sit on some, and then, jack the price up. And if that's the case, they sort of, they kind of, they were reaping the benefits of those tactics, but, finally catches up to you at some point. So, and I'm not rooting against them either. They're, and many of them do it the right way and above board. And there are, we forget the human element, right? These are people and employees that have families they provide for, and you don't want to see anyone lose their job. I've said that numerous times. And, so you hope it all works out, but, I'd be definitely concerned in that space for sure. But the LCSs, and they've made a comeback. There was a period where they were, I don't want to say in trouble, but there was a lot less, and they've kind of made a resurgence. And I think along with the resurgence of LCSs, we've seen the hobby along the same track. And so it would worry me if we start to see less LCSs. The hobby's going to go along the same lines, kind of.
Totally, yeah. There's direct correlation between the two.
Yep. So I hope Fanatics really sees how these all work together and makes those right decisions. I think they will at the end of the day. that remains to be seen. But I like to give them the benefit of the doubt until they prove otherwise, I guess. And be interesting to see. But there's a lot of smart people in that building. So
the valuations being thrown around now on Fanatics and their different businesses. Michael's a very astute guy. He knows what he's doing, and he's probably got a ton of smart people around him that are asking these same questions and answering with a lot more data analytics than we are.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Alex, I appreciate you spending some time with us, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I just spoke to the importance as a former LCS owner myself. It's a lifeline of the hobby. It's like the show Cheers. I don't know if you're familiar with the show Cheers.
I know, yeah.
You go in and you could drink at home, but there's something about going in, going up to the counter and hanging out with some like-minded people, and that's kind of what cards are card stores are for the hobby, and definitely need them, and even more so. And so it's important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of people that social interaction, especially in pandemic times when we're limited and more than ever than we have been before. I think it's important to have that availability. Card shows, card stores. If we have to wear a mask, we have to wear a mask. There's worse things in life than wearing a mask. But we'll see what happens. But for those that listening, tell everyone where they can find Relics. If you want to give out your address, your website, your social medias, where people can see what you guys are doing there.
Thank you, John, and thank you for having me. It's been a true pleasure. It's obviously fun talking to someone like yourself who's been around for such a long time, and hearing different perspectives. I'm a year into an LCS, and like you said, you've been around for 40 years. So it's crazy that there's a meeting of the minds, even between two different generations. Relics is at 3235 Yonge Street. We're in Midtown Toronto. We are just north of Lawrence. We are open 7 days a week. Our website is www.relikks.com. We spell Reliks RELIKKS. So that's reliks.com. Instagram is where we do vast majority of our content at Reliks. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. Check us out. We group break every Sunday night and run a live single sale every Wednesday night. And the one last plug that I'll make is we are going to be announcing shortly a charity group break right in time for the holidays. 100% of all group break spots sold will go directly to the Sick Kids Hospital. We do work with the sick kids, and they're obviously in an amazing place. And again, one of the foundational reasons we started this shop was to bring kids back into the hobby. So it's always nice for us to get the opportunity to do that. We're going to be breaking all 4 major sports. The plan is to have each of those sports actually co-hosted and broken by an athlete. We've got baseball lockdown. Any of you guys that follow Relics know we've got some baseball players that are fans of ours and help us out. So we'll be announcing that shortly. So please support that. That's obviously a close cost to us. So we hope you guys, whoever's listening, can grab a spot and help sick kids and make it fun.
Awesome stuff, Alex. Anyone that knows me knows everything that you just mentioned near and dear to me. I love kids in the hobby. I do a little bit of charity myself with Make-A-Wish here in the States, and great organizations, and anything that can help kids. It kind of shows where your heart really is. And so 2 thumbs up for me, and awesome to hear. And like you said, Relics is spelled RELIKKS. I'll put it in the show notes with a link, so we make sure we can get people headed your way. Keep on doing what you're doing, and continued success.
Thank you, John. Thank you, my man. Talk soon.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 158 of the new Sports Card Nation, or at least the new format. First off, I want to thank my guest, Mr. Alex Nisenker from Relics Cards and Collectibles in Toronto. Let us in on the difficulties and the, obstacles in opening an LCS, especially during pandemic times. Some of his fears with the Fanatics and some of what he's hoping to see Fanatics does. Gave us kind of a market report as well. I got to get up. Toronto, one of my favorite cities in the world. I've been there, probably 4 or 5 times. And like I said during the interview, it kind of reminds me of the, Canada's version of New York City. So I'm very fond of it and got to get up there and check that shop out for sure. Again, let us know what you think of this new format. This is your show. Without you, we don't exist. We're trying to make this a little bit shorter, where it's a little bit more consumable to the point and be an interview show, as it always has, and have Hobby Quick Hits sort of be my little rant show and current news type show. So we're changing it up a little bit. Let us know, good, bad, love it, hate it, whatever the case may be. The Hobby is the People guest announcer line will still be on Sports Card Nation. And if you like to do it, as you heard here at the beginning of the show, send that sound file to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. That's sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We'd love to have you be part of the show and do that. Just say, hey, your name, give yourself a little plug, and the tagline of the show, which is the Hobby is the People. With that being said, we're going to wrap this new edition, if you will, of Sports Card Nation. Hope all is well. We'll see you soon. Take care.
What doesn't one of one card shop do? From box, case, and personal breaks, there's always fire being pulled. They offer bulk grading subs, and their large store located in Strongsville, Ohio, offers an incredible selection of sports cards, non-sports, and authentic autographed memorabilia. Steve and family will treat you right. Check them out on Instagram at One of One Card Shop or on the web at oneofOneCardShop.com.